the voice of the Dallas Mavericks, Chuck Cooperstein. Oh, there he is. It seems like he can hear me fine. And Chuck, yeah, good to see you, man. And I thought the Mavs were going to get a win last night. It didn't happen. And I wonder, by the way, when all those chants are going down and happening, and it's really weird that's happening, like when the Mavs are shooting free throws in your headset, like, can you hear all that? Is that, yeah.
Could hear it.
Game? Yeah.
I could hear it, then took off one ear just to make sure that I was hearing what I thought I heard. Yes, you could hear it. And I'll say that was, there's a lot going on, obviously, but that was a really disappointing response for me. Everybody knows the story. Everybody knows, how everybody feels and was feeling. But those guys are out there trying to win games. And they're busting their ass to try to win a game. And at the very least, if you're going to do it coming out of a timeout, do it at the start of the game, the start of a half, when they're shooting free throws and the other team is shooting free throws. Don't do it when your team is shooting free throws and they're trying to win the game. I just thought it was a really bad look. I was really disappointed about that, while obviously understanding, how a lot of people were feeling, and definitely, you pay your money, and you as long as you're respectful and you're not cursing and stuff like that, you can say whatever you want. I just thought the timing was really odd, and I thought the timing, certainly for the team, was really wrong.
What are your feelings when you knew it was headed this way? We saw the reports yesterday. When it became official this morning, you love the team. You work, you're a big Mavs fan, but you work for the team. All those things that you're loyal to the team, but you also have your opinions on decisions that are made and everything. Was it a feeling of like, I'm glad this chapter is ending? What is relief? What was your feeling when you first saw the news?
Well, it's relief because this did seem like a result of the old Jeremy Foley line when he fired Ron Zook back in the day. That which must be done eventually, or which will be done eventually, should be done immediately. I don't know that. The only thing that I guess that I was kind of surprised at was that they did it when they did it. I really thought, with the number of home games that the Mavericks have over the next week, they have they're in the midst of a 4-game homestand right now, in the midst of 7 of 8 at home. It's 13 of 18 to start the year. That maybe that they would find a way, given another week. And granted, the competition is pretty good, although the Clippers are really struggling right now. That they could find some footing, because from indications, it looks like that Davis and Lively are not that far away from coming back to play, and maybe you get a little better look at what this team ultimately was going to look like, having those two players to add to their roster, although those two players don't necessarily solve the inherent problems that this team has, which is a clear lack of shooting. The shooting is, you're shooting 29.5% or 29.5% from three. There's never been a team in the history of basketball over a full season that has shot 20.5%, 29.5%. Granted, this is just 11 games, but when you struggle to even make 10 3-pointers a game, you're going to lose the 3-point math. And then you have to go shoot a bunch of free throws. And the Mavericks put themselves in a position last night to do that because they shot 41. They shot 41 free throws. Ultimately made 31. If they had made 34, they would have won. I guess that's the thing that surprised me. I thought it might have taken a little more time, that they would have given it a little more time. But I think the fact that Patrick Dumont came into town himself to have these meetings on Sunday and Monday, and that he's sitting in the stands and he's hearing the fans in a close game that his team has a chance to win, and he's hearing the fans do this. If he had not already made the decision I think that last moment when PJ missed the free throw, one of the three, the second of three, when they were down by 3, I think that was probably the final push.
It doesn't help that Luka has just been brilliant and is scoring 40 a game, which, by the way, we saw a lot of that over the years. Let's not act like this is the first time.
No, we've never seen him score 37 a game. We've not, maybe over a period of time, but
yeah,
never quite like this.
We've seen him be brilliant, but this is unbelievable. And when we start talking about MVPs, don't we, in NBA, about 2 games in usually. So it's already happening with Luka, and like you said, and then Dumont weighing in on the Anthony Davis injury reportedly. I think Tim McMahon had that story. Boy, that told you that there was a different level of involvement that was happening. I mean, that wouldn't have surprised us to hear about Mark Cuban back in the day, that
Right.
Mark might say something, but for Dumont to be weighing in on those types of things tells you that there was a higher level involvement. So probably a good clue that something like this was about to happen.
Well, that was a pretty bizarre scene, frankly, in both. I want to say where were the Mavericks last week when they were in after the game. It was in Mexico. It was at first in Mexico. Davis went pretty hard. That was the first game after he got hurt in the first quarter against Indiana, and he went hard for about 15 to 18 minutes before the Mavericks came out on the floor to play that game against Detroit. And then, we saw it again in Washington on Saturday after he was, declared out of the game, which again led me to believe that maybe he was going to play last night, but he didn't play last night. So, it's my book is very messy, trying to figure out the Mavericks lineup and where everybody should sit in my lineup page. And I don't know when he's coming back. I don't know when Lively's coming back. But given what happened last year and how Lively's injury was ultimately misdiagnosed, that this staff was going to be extraordinarily careful in determining whether or not when he was going to come back, even though, Nico's probably thinking, man, I need this guy back in the lineup. And Davis is thinking, Nico's my guy. He's in trouble. I want to help him get out of trouble. And he wasn't allowed to be able to do that.
Chuck, what did you think of Nico before the trade the infamous trade on February 2nd? Like, just your time around him and just observing some of the moves he had made. What were your thoughts on him before it went down?
Well, he clearly he had a mixed bag, just like every general manager has a mixed bag. He gave up a first round pick for Christian Wood. It was a bad trade. They signed JaVale McGee. Thought he was going to be a starter. He was a starter for like 5 games. And they're still paying JaVale McGee because they stretch waived him. He wanted reportedly to trade for Kyle Kuzma, but Kuzma didn't want to come here, and that led to the Mavericks ultimately making the deals that they made for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And without those 2 guys, the Mavericks don't go to the finals in 2024. The draft has been kind of a mixed bag. They thought they were going to steal something with Jaden Hardy, from Sacramento. That didn't really work out very well. Omax Prosper didn't work out. Lively has worked out when he's played, but it's been now apparent that in all 4 years of his college and NBA career, that he's an injury-prone player, and that's unfortunate because he's really, really good. I mean, clearly the talent is there, but you need to be able to play, and he's not on the floor right now, and hasn't been on when this team, really needed him. Not his fault. I mean, he got hurt. Just like it's Davis' fault that he got hurt. I don't think he tried to get hurt, didn't want to get hurt, but he got hurt, and so that hurts. And obviously, the best trade he made was getting Kyrie Irving. And he got Kyrie Irving for really pennies on the dollar. And no one thought that Kyrie was worth taking a shot on, except him, because he had the relationship with Kyrie, and Kyrie really knew that this was going to be his last chance to succeed, and he wasn't going to allow Nico Harrison to fail, and Jason Kidd, for that matter, who he grew up watching at the Meadowlands when they were going to the finals in the early aughts. And then, unfortunately, Kyrie playing some of the best basketball of his career gets hurt in early March, and he hasn't been back, and he hasn't been able to really help solve the on-court problem. Other than being around the team and being a sounding board for them.
Did you try to keep an open mind, like, about the trade? I'm trying to remember, because I think I talked to you not long after it, when Luka was coming back here. Or did you have the visceral response, like a lot of people did, that this is horrific? This is insanity. What was your, in the 24 hours and as you had time to kind of process that, what was your immediate reaction now looking back?
The immediate reaction is that were I the general manager, I wouldn't have made the trade. But I'm not the general manager, and I don't know everything that he knows. I'm not around that team every single minute the way he is. So, I'm watching it the way you're watching it. I mean, I see, a 5-time first team All NBA player at age 25 in the prime of his career as the logical successor to Dirk Nowitzki, as the face of the Mavericks franchise, and arguably the biggest face in sports in Dallas, and that includes the Cowboys. You deal away something like that. It almost doesn't matter what you get in return, even if Anthony Davis is a top 75 all-time player, maybe even a top 50 all-time player. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He could stop playing tomorrow, and Anthony Davis is going to the Hall of Fame. It's not like they got nothing in the trade, but there was, there was an emotional attachment to Luka that once you trade for someone, no matter how good he is, it takes time to build an emotional attachment, if you can build it at all. And I think that's where it's not just Nico, but I do think, the organization struggled in dealing with that as well in the aftermath of the trade. And now, look, I think, time allows you to look back on things and see, what you did right, what you did wrong. And it seems pretty evident that Patrick Dumont has some regrets about what went down on the night of February 1st, and he wants to try to do right. But it's going to take a long time, I think, for them to be able to do right. But at least they do have a starting building block in Cooper Flagg.
Okay, and that leads me to Flagg had his best game, at least scoring-wise, with the Mavs last night. Had a big moment with about 28 seconds left, where he went right at Giannis, and he said after the game he was meaning to dunk, but I think he got up there and realized I better not do that. This whole thing has had to be weird to him, navigating people asking him about, and then hearing all the chants up there. I don't know what people expected from Cooper. I think we expected a lot. He had that one game I attended where he had 2 points. You remember the one, and that was bad. Everybody's going to have their rookie moments, but when you're number one overall, there's just that huge microscope. What are you night in, night out, and then last night even? Are you seeing him just growing and coming along at a really good clip? What has been your impression so far?
Absolutely. No, and last night was his best all-around game. I mean, look, every night there's a steal and a block, 2 steals and a block. His offense is a work in progress, but his offense, I think, has become better in the last few games without nearly as much ball handling responsibility as he had at the beginning of the year, as Jason Kidd has now cycled through him, D'Angelo Russell, and now Brandon Williams, as the initiator of the offense at point guard. And again, not that necessarily leads to assists, but, how are you getting into your stuff? And I think Flagg is probably better suited as a secondary creator at the moment. And he's really good going to the rim, and he's really good, finishing with his offhand. He's terrific with his left hand, great free throw shooter. The shooting, and I think we see this with a lot of college guys, that will be the last thing to come. And frankly, that was the last thing that came for Flag last year at Duke, because it really was not until the start of conference play that he started shooting the ball at the manner that we expect him to shoot it here. But it's a little different when you're playing the NBA. The game is faster. You got to get rid of your shot faster. But overall, I mean, I think he's handled it great. And I think last night was just, I think, a smidge of what we're going to see going forward. And I think, we have to remember, Matt, it's only 11 games. I mean, it's 11 games at 82. I mean, I don't know that he's going to play every game, but he's probably going to play 70. So there's a lot more opportunity for growth. And I think, if you look back to opening night against San Antonio to where he was last night, I think you saw a different player offensively. I think you saw a much more assertive player offensively. I think, there have been times where he's been a little too deferential to the other guys around him. And I think I don't know when that point comes, and maybe it has started to come here where, he recognizes that, hey, I'm pretty good and I can do this. And I can, it doesn't matter that I'm 18 years old. I can still go against these guys and I can score, and I can affect the game that way. And be aggressive and get to the rim and get fouled and make free throws. And then as long as he keeps doing that, does that enough, keeps working on his outside shot, the outside shot will come. I don't think anybody should be disappointed. I mean, look, you can look at guys like Edgecombe, who's been great in Philadelphia. Role's a little different now that Jared McCain is back, not getting quite as many shots as he got early in the year. Cedric Coward playing with Memphis has been just sensational. I mean, he's a 50, 40, 90 guy, getting big-time minutes right away for a guy playing only 6 games last year in Washington State. So Con Knippel's been terrific. His Duke teammate, which to me has been a little bit of a surprise. I didn't think he'd be quite this good early in the year. But nobody should worry about Cooper Flag. In fact, given everything that's going on around the franchise right now, Cooper Flag is probably the least of the Mavericks' concerns.
That is good to hear. Cade Cunningham, you were talking about shots a minute ago. 45 shots last night.
It's crazy.
46 points, which is good, and I think they did win that game. What do you think this fan base, from what you can tell, and maybe even people in your own household? I'm thinking about your son too, but is this a day of relief? You said something, relieved was one thing you talked about, but for the fan base, this next trip they take to the AAC, it's like they've had this 9 months of directing their anger toward this one man, maybe a little bit to Dumont, but mostly to Nico. What do you think today is like for this fandom? In immediate aftermath, at least on Twitter and everything, it seems to be huge celebration. But it can quickly go back to anger when you watch Luka, as you were just talking about, score 37 a game and watch what you thought would happen here for the next decade happen not only somewhere else, but a place that a team and a franchise Mavs fans do not like. And a lot of teams don't like, but the Mavs, that goes back to the 80s. Where do you think this fan base is today?
It's a great question, Matt. And I don't know that I have a really good handle on it. I think that, for the most part, they are relieved, and they are relieved for sure that, this has all gone on. There's just way too much going on. And it was time to, make a decision. Either we're doing this or we're not doing this. So they've gone ahead and do that. I'm not into dancing on anyone's grave because, I don't know that you've necessarily lived until you've been fired. And it's got to be a horrible day, for Nico. Obviously there's a lot he did, by making the trade that brought this moment to pass. But from a fan standpoint, they just want this team to win, and I don't think they necessarily know how their team is going to get to that point. With Kyrie not coming back until late January or early February, or again, if the team continues to struggle, do they even bring him back at all? Is Anthony Davis on the trade market? Are they going to blow the whole thing up and take 2 steps back and build around Cooper Flag and try to regain a lot of the draft choices that they'd lost when they were trying to build a championship window, which Nico Harrison did. I mean, ultimately he did. That's, and that's going to be lost in all of this. He built a team that was 3 wins away from winning the NBA championship. But now but in doing that, there was a price paid as far as, the players that you brought in order to do that. Well, right now it doesn't look like they're really close to winning an NBA championship. And if that is indeed the goal, and multiple championships, as Patrick Dumont alluded to in his open letter today, then you need to have assets in order to make that happen. And they have a couple of people who I don't know that they necessarily, given their overall talent, will retrieve the assets you would think and capital that you would think that they should get because of their injury status and their age status. But it's absolutely a start, and I think that's probably where the fan base is right now. I think the fan base is looking at this team and saying they're not good enough to get to where everybody wants them to go, and what's the best way to do it. And the best way is to try to retrieve draft choices. So, again, do the Mavericks do that, during the season? Do they do that, in the postseason, when they name a general manager, whoever that general manager is, what's his approach toward this? There is still as many questions as there's ever been, even in light of the events of today.
All right. And we heard, by the way, people said, well, bring in Bob Myers. We'll start throwing out all kinds of names. Dennis Lindsay had consulted with the Mavs, the former Utah Jazz GM and former Baylor player, I might add. So that was one name just being bandied about. I don't know, what interest level he would have. But do you think, Chuck, is that a search that will happen? How long? What do you think a timetable would be like on something like that?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if the attitude is, get a guy in here ASAP, let him evaluate the situation. And of course, the trade deadline is the first Thursday in February, or the second Thursday in February. It's February 6th, I think, this year. That's one way to look at it. The other way is that, Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi are going to run the team together in operations for the rest of the season on an interim basis, and just let the year play out. Give the ownership the ultimate amount of time to make a decision as to whether either what you already have in house is good enough to go forward with, or do you need someone from the outside to go ahead and do that? I don't have any clue as to the thinking there right now.
Chuck, I appreciate it. Busy day. Usually we see a 3-8 team, hockey and NBA, like a coach might get thrown overboard. It's a little unusual to see a GM, but these are unusual circumstances. And I did see somewhere somebody said Jerry Jones can now return to being the most hated executive.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting too. If you go back to 1989, when John McLeod was fired after the Mavericks lost by 57 to the Supersonics at home, they lost like 117-70. No, so that's not. Is that 56? No, that's not quite. It's what, 46. That's why I always have a stat guy with me, because I can't do math in my head. But John McLeod was fired after that game, and the Mavericks had just played 11 games. They were 5-6, and now they make this move today after 11 games.
Wow! Did Buckner make it through one whole season?
Yes.
What about Clemens?
Yes, Clemens made it. Clemens got replaced in his second season when Nelly took over.
Okay. I'm just thinking of the really rough, some of
Yes.
the more rough eras in that. And anyway, well, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I don't know. I was going to say a great day. It's. I don't like, even with the weird circumstances. You don't like being excited for somebody to be fired, but I know for the fans, this is a certain level of. I don't know. This is what they've been chanting for. Yeah.
I think for much of the fan base, it's cathartic.
Yes. True.
It is cathartic for them. But again, is that just like a short-term sugar rush,
Hmm.
or is it something that is lasting in their minds to feel that, okay, they've done what we asked them to do, and now we can go back to actually rooting for the team, rooting for the players who are here to win games and try to get this thing turned around. I hope that that's what will happen starting tomorrow night against Phoenix.
All right, Chuck. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
You bet. There he goes, Chuck Cooperstein on the Matt Mosley Show.